Yeah, but
Yeah.
I bet you've never used a card catalog.
We talked about the card cataloging. Well,
I'm really dating myself with that one.
I've used phone book and an atlas.
For the record, I'm
I
waiting
think
for the EMP, so we do all go back to libraries.
I
Just to be honest.
Welcome to the Deeks.ai podcast, where Wake Forest innovators unpack the real-world magic of artificial intelligence through candid conversations. I'm Michael Ferrari.
I'm Ryan Scholl.
Please join us as we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming work across campus, one fascinating story at a time.
Talon Keeler is a college student. Talon Keeler does not like to use artificial intelligence. Join us as we learn how both of these statements can be true in today's world of higher education. Talon will discuss the slow decay of the human connection, the fear of cognitive decline, and a wishful return to the gilded libraries of classic academia. Alrighty. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Deeks.ai podcast. Today, Ryan and I are joined by Talon Keeler. She is a junior studying political science and mathematics. How you doing, Talon? Anything else you want people to know about yourself before we begin?
Hi, I'm pretty good. It's great to be here. I think that's about it. I'm a writing center tutor, a mass grader, and a Wakerspace volunteer, and that's kind of my resume in quick, I suppose.
Well, one thing I'm really excited about having you here is I think you are going to break the media narrative of students and AI in college. So I'm maybe previewing a little bit of what we're talking about, but if you read the mainstream media, every student is cheating their way through college right now and using AI for everything. So that's what I'm really excited about this conversation. We're going to hear from an actual student who's actually going through college and how she may or may not be using AI to further her education here. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So again, you're a junior.
Yeah.
When did you come to Wake Forest?
I came to Wake Forest, it would have been in 2003. I'm fairly sure if I'm getting my years right. Yep. In 2023.
So did you have exposure to artificial intelligence before you came, when you were in high school?
Yes, but not heavy. I remember the tail end of my senior year in high school, I have a really vivid memory of talking to one of my high school English teachers about how he was planning on catching AI written papers as already kind of almost like a precognition that it was going to become a big thing.
So it was looked upon as a cheat machine back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the teachers had to fight against it.
Yeah, it was.
And then that was sort of the beginnings of when artificial intelligence was released to the public.
Yeah.
So then when you came to Wake Forest, was that sentiment pretty much the same? Was it different?
I think when I came to Wake Forest, it almost seemed, or at least in the chaos of what a freshman year always is, AI was always present and it's kind of always there, just looming in the background. Not to spoiler alert, I wasn't using it, but it did kind of linger over all your academics. It was getting brought up. But I would say that last year, my sophomore year, was kind of where it became the cultural discourse cornerstone that it is.
I'm curious, the very earliest stages of hearing and talking about AI, was it primarily from the teachers end, or was it as big or as common of a thing among students as well?
I think what I remember hearing early on, most of what I heard about AI was concerning writing pretty exclusively.
Okay.
I think that's where the first signal flare got sent up. And I love talking to my professors. I love talking in general. But so I heard a lot about it.
Thank you for being on the podcast then.
It's perfect. But so I remember talking to my professors. Oh my God, my professors about it a good deal. On the student side, I think it still felt new. then, if that makes sense. Like, people talked about using it, but it was more of a, like, "Let's explore how this works."
Gotcha.
I do know, however, freshman year, second half, it was the moment where I kind of realized that a lot of people had been using AI around me
Hmm.
when I didn't know that because we had an in-class assignment that was messing around in AI. And the professor asked, he was like, "What, like, do you guys usually use? Like, is it ChatGPT? Is it Gemini? Is it Copilot, etc.?" And people had answers.
Ha.
And I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh,
And
we have brand loyalty
is
already."
it fair to say most people had just experimented with ChatGPT?
Yeah, it was mostly ChatGPT. I remember there was one more techie guy who said Gemini, and I was like, "Okay."
Interesting. So you have formed an opinion about artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and it's primarily based on academics, but based on your personal life as well. Run us through your general feelings and why you feel that way.
My general feeling about AI, or generative AI as it stands, is that I'm fairly against most uses of it. I think in the academic sense, it is kind of like this multi-tool that people think they can use to do just about everything, when really there are specialized tools that learning how to use, I think, are better for people, like, both developing the mental acuity and that kind of intellectual rigor, and also in the professional development as well, being able to use specialized tools rather than going to this kind of everyman, which has dubious reliability. Um, I think I get concerned when people use it as an explainer, or as they lose the access of where pedagogical resources can be found, either through the professors or online, and also that it kind of damages the peer-to-peer relationship, because there's somebody you're going to ask first before texting a friend, or there's something you're going to ask first before going to office hours. So I think it does have a degrading effect in both, like, quality of learning and also how you go about doing it. Um, and kind of taking away that searching aspect of finding the tools that are helpful to you, finding the people that are helpful to you. Instead, it's just you go to ChatGPT.
So you've touched on a whole lot right there. One thing you said in our previous conversation was you like doing a lot of things by hand
Yeah.
because that struggle helps you learn.
Yeah.
And when you feel that when you or other students will use some of these AI tools, that that shortcuts the learning process a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it does. I feel, not to say like a truism, but like struggle is learning. And having like a memory or an experience tied to learning a concept or figuring out something difficult, when you're remembering it later, you're not going to remember 5, 10 years down the line, like, the flashcards you're gonna be looking at. You're not gonna
Mhm.
remember the, like, load out of text that ChatGPT gives you. You're going to remember, like, the story, the narrative of the work you put in to learn it. And I also think building those muscles, use it or lose it in a big way, um, of figuring things out yourself. In the idea of kind of like less crystal intelligence and more fluid intelligence, being able to learn things and be able to figure things out is a skill I think is really important.
Mhm.
Well, I have to call this out only because I just said this. I just came from a meeting with two professors, and one was trying to do something on the computer, and the other said, "We're not going to tell him how to do it. We're going to make him do it so he learns."
Yeah.
And I was immediately thinking of this conversation we're having right now
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
exactly what you were saying
Yeah.
about having to do something by yourself where you learn rather than just, you know, somebody telling you how to do it or an AI. Now,
Yeah.
in his sense, he was just this was a productivity thing, but it
Yeah.
was such I was immediately thinking about this conversation. So I was already in podcast mode with these
Because
people.
I feel like that's what kind of baffles me all the time. Is like we hear that rhetoric everywhere. I know I grew up
Mhm.
hearing it constantly, and for it to kind of like become subsumed through this
Yeah.
like brute efficiency AI use argument
Yeah.
is it's not shocking to me, I'd say, but it is
Mhm.
something that I, like, recognize, and I always kind of raise my eyebrow at.
Now, I
Yeah.
know you've thought a lot about this, and you say that you've kept up with some of the news and,
Yeah.
and some of the features of AI. And while you say that there's a shortcut to that learning process, do you see ways it can expand the learning potential at all?
I struggled to on account of if AI knows the answer to something, the answer already exists somewhere else, right?
So you're saying you might go to a different source.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what I see people using AI to do is to summarize or
Mm.
to explain back. And I think being able to yourself summarize large and complex tasks and to not only knowing the answers to questions, but being able to generate questions, I think are important skills. Um, I'm not gonna like stomp my foot on the ground and say I don't think there's a way for AI to be useful in learning
Right.
because all statements, you're gonna find a counterexample
Mhm.
somewhere. But I don't think most applications are useful.
So I can relate to and understand what you're saying about like your apprehension with it being people's first like reaction like with something is to, well, I'll ask, chat GPT or something. Ryan and I have talked about it before. I don't like looking up dumb things like what was the name of an actor in this movie because I want to think about it. I want to try and remember it. I feel like that's just something important. But like, what is your viewpoint if, say, someone was trying to learn and they are hitting their head against the wall and either they can't figure something out or they're really having trouble with like certain concepts? What about like as like a last resort going to AI to help you?
As a last resort, my question then, not to answer a question with a question, but to do exactly that,
Hmm.
is it kind of relies on the assumption that AI is going to be able to find something you were not able to find yourself, or that AI is going to be able to understand it, digest it, and then give it
Hmm.
to you in an understandable way. And I doubt its capabilities to do that. And this is something I was thinking about just before coming here, because I was thinking about one of my friends who oftentimes does have ChatGPT explain concepts to him. And every time he talks about that to me, I'm just like, some Khan Academy's gotta have done that, or like your textbook has to have done that, or somebody on Reddit has to have said that. I'm just like, what about ChatGPT's method of explaining things to you is different? And why is it more effective? And maybe a very uncharitable response my brain conjured up was almost this idea of like a placebo effect. Like there's such a mysticism around AI and ChatGPT in specific about it being able to convey information almost like supernaturally well.
Does
And
your friend think that it's more effective that way?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's a direct result of just how big the internet is now personally and how you really have to cut through some weeds to find the answer you're looking for. So I kind of feel like as search engines have gotten worse, and even like in my opinion, like now when you search and you get that AI result, ironically enough at the top, and sometimes it's not good at all. I feel like sometimes it is a bit easier to use the glorified search of a large language model because it just seems a bit efficient, at chopping through those weeds of like going through 20 articles or something that's not at all what you're looking for. It just
Yeah.
got hung up on a keyword or something.
My concern with those weeds is that I attribute some of them as a fault of generative AI, because the amount of
Yeah.
AI written text on the internet is cartoonishly large, and something I think about often is kind of like the incestuous nature of these databases as AI begins to scrape AI written text. And like
Mhm.
how far does that have to go? Like what percentage of the internet is bot users and AI written text before the AI what the AI is reading
Is
is
AI written?
nonsensical.
It's all synthetic
Yeah.
data now. That definitely is an interesting concept if we're just doing recursive information from the AIs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
then again, I'm completely scared that AI is trained on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, and Reddit. That
Yeah.
freaks me out in the sense.
I
But
I think the top when you Google something, the little AI answer result, if it doesn't have a link from it, I think 99% of the time it's from Reddit.
hmm,
I'm pretty sure of this.
that that could be the reality we live in.
Yeah.
Do you see a difference between the struggle to learn and maybe using it to expand learning opportunities? So I know you've talked about when you can't find the information, you want to go look for it somewhere. If you want to put it in a different context, you feel that it's probably out there somewhere and you're using your mind. What about trying to find a concept in a different light, but really not clicking? Do you think there are opportunities for artificial intelligence to reframe these topics in a way that really connects with different people?
I am going to say on a surface level, yes, but it's going to do so without intention. And I think that lack of intention or care in drawing these parallels or drawing these reframings of topics is going to reduce the quality that it can provide.
Unfairly, I'm going to ask you if you think your views about this reflect most of the students here at Wake Forest.
No, no, I don't. I talk to other students. Actually, being on this podcast, me running my mouth like, "Oh, I'm Word, I'm a guest on this podcast, blah blah blah." I've struck up a lot of conversations, but um even among like close friends of mine, who you always kind of assume that you're friends, you try not to live in a bubble. You always assume you kind of live in this like ideological bubble. But friends of mine use AI. I think the general populace uses AI at a much higher rate for their personal life, for academics. Um, I think my general viewpoint on AI is kind of reflective, like a broader differences in my beliefs about education than the rest of the student population. Like, I don't think it's distinctly different.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think AI is something special in that way. But
So you've very eloquently put why you're not totally in favor
yeah,
of using it in the academics. Why do you think other students will lean more towards it or use it for different use cases in academics?
I think there are a ton of different cases. It's not a monolith.
Mhm.
One thing I think a lot of students feel is a great deal of trust towards the results of AI or trust towards the quality of an AI's product, which I don't believe in. Or I think a lot of people feel kind of the idea of the undergraduate or just in general, like whether it's undergraduate, graduate, post-grad career, um, that what they're doing now, like the value isn't in the action itself, it's like getting to the next step, right?
So it's all about the motivation.
It's all
Mm.
about the motivation, and
Y-
in that sense, it's, well, ChatGPT can get this done, right?
Maybe like a divisional class you don't really want to take. A
Yeah,
student miss, I just have to get through
I
this.
have to get
Mm-hmm.
through this. Yeah.
Interesting. So it may be about I just need to put the check in the box and get the degree rather than you've strongly expressed your desire to really learn and do that deep learning.
Yeah, growing up, I think I was really lucky to have a community or talk enough to enough people that when I decided that I was going to go to college, because it wasn't a sure thing for me, um, a lot of people talking to me like, what is the purpose of undergrad? What's the purpose of an undergraduate degree? And that it doesn't define your life, what you get your undergrad degree in. It's a tool that you can use, but you're gonna learn how to work a job at a job. But you're going
Mhm.
to gain these qualifications, gain these skills that make you a more competent person and, to put it in corporate speak, a more desirable candidate
Hmm.
through that effort, through that process and trial. So I came into college and I was never really concerned about, obviously, I wanted the paper. I
Hmm.
wanted the degree. I'm paying a lot of money for the degree.
And this didn't mean a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it wasn't just like, I'm not like, I need this GPA number. I need my
Mhm.
exact major to do this so I can submit it to my life plan.
Hmm.
I guess my focus has always kind of been on like making myself into something powerful, I would say.
Hmm.
Like becoming an individual who's capable of doing a lot of things in the greater world rather than kind of checking off these boxes. And that sounds really high and mighty. I'll admit that. But sometimes, I get worse grades on assignments, or I spend way too long on assignments that I know I could have used
Mhm.
AI for.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
say, well, I guess water off my back.
But is
Now
it
with
about the grade or the learning?
That's the thing. I think I choose the learning side of it. And the grades are really complicated pedagogically. They are also deeply stressful. To me, I think it'd be hard to find a student that's not stressed about their grades. But I think sometimes you have to be willing to take losses. And that's a
now
hard thing. Oh, sorry.
No, 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 you're fine. I'm just curious that like obviously like you were talking about with being here to learn and all that, and then some people may be viewing it more of like a checkbox and just getting it done and getting into the position and all that that they're looking for. Do you think AI is actually moving the needle on how many people now want just that checkbox checked? Or do you think they would have found a means or maybe coasted through and just with a lower GPA and AI is just helping them do that with a higher GPA?
I think my answer to that is I think people have always, not always, in recent memory, I guess, a lot of people have viewed the undergraduate college experience and just doing things, effort in general, as like a means to an end, and they're going to find their way
Mhm.
to get through it quickly. I don't think I think AI may make it easier. I think there have always been ways to do it though, but in the absence of AI, we're forced to either find more creative means to do it that had a process of learning in it of itself,
Mhm.
or like getting through that getting through that challenge, even if you were trying to skirt it, still required you to pick up skills along the way and required you to adopt some knowledge. Where AI, the impulse to use it, I don't think it's new. And I don't know, like I've got a gut feeling, yes, but I don't feel confident enough to argue that AI is increasing that impulse. But I do think it is making it easier in such a way that, like, even the process of skirting it being easier makes there
Mhm.
less learning involved.
Do you think now the standard for achieving a certain grade gets higher? So what used to be um, uh, B level work is now a C, or do you think you have to produce as a student higher level work to be assessed at a higher level? And and then the second part of that question is, as somebody who doesn't love using AI, do you feel at a disadvantage then? If
Uh,
part A is true.
no,
No.
I don't. I think it's being run up against grade inflation,
Hmm.
which I think is real. And also, I'm not ever truly amazed at what AI produces. I working as a
Is
writing
that
tu
from your experience or from what you've seen how other people have used it?
um mostly from looking at how other people use it. As a writing tutor, I've had people come in with essays that AI has either written parts of or has helped with. And I'm not a punitive person, even though I disagree with some. I always find it like really curious, but something that I always think internally is I'm like, wow, this isn't that good.
And
Or
are they upfront with like and honest that that they utilize like AI, or is it more like you can strongly assume that they did?
it is, I'm a very not confrontational person, but I'm not the most subtle. So a lot of times, and the Writing Center we don't report anyone.
Mhm.
That's not our business. That's not something we're saying. We're not contacting an honor council. We're not contacting a professor. Um, and I think students do know that. But a lot of times, in like my experience, I've picked up on my own cues that kind of tell me when I think something's written by AI,
Mhm.
and I'll ask, right? And usually they tell me the answer.
Hmm.
And if they don't, I'll ask them, like, where can like you pull up the source for or like
Mhm.
what were you
Mhm.
thinking when you were writing this? Did you talk about it in class? And usually it gets to the point where it's just like, well, I'm like, okay, man, like we're peers.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do anything. I think you need to like work on this part because it's argumentatively weak. I don't really care how you got to. Well, I care as an individual, but as a tutor, I don't care how you got to that. But if we are working together to try and improve it, I think that honesty is a part of it, and I think, like, recognizing the shortcomings that AI use can have is important in improving
Mhm.
that work as well. But all that to say is, I think that secrecy is unique to the idea of, like, tutorship. I think on, like, a peer-to-peer level, when I'm just a student in a class with another person, it's like nobody tries to hide it from
Mhm.
each other.
Do you think they seem like receptive to that, or have any kind of realization um that like, hey, this AI might not be as good as you think, and it might be actually hurting you in a lot of ways?
Um, I would love for the answer to be yes. I don't see it as yes very often. I think a lot of times they're like, "You can tell it's AI? How do I make it so you can't tell it's
Do
AI?"
they use do they put it back into AI and say, "Hey."
Well, normally, I'm just like I don't think often. Sometimes I'm just like, "Change these sentence structure." Like, it sounds like an ad read.
Mhm.
You have to mess with it. But I also think it and this kind of just makes me really sad, I guess, is that even when you bring up or you express like a belief that like the quality of this AI's writing is bad, I think your voice would be better. I don't think students believe it very often. I
Mhm.
think there's kind of a low self-confidence there, or
Mm.
like a position of AI work on a pedestal that is really hard to overcome.
We know that professors have implemented different AI policies and over the years they've changed and they've gotten more loose or more strict or more creative, and some professors are actually implementing AI into their courses. Have you had any assignments where a professor has explicitly stated you must use AI for this?
Um, I have never been forced to use AI. I've been encouraged to. I've been what I felt like kind of was like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You can use AI to do this,
Hmm.
but there's never been, I know of assignments that have forced people to do it. I've heard my peers talking about it. I've never specifically been on the receiving end.
How did you feel when you were wink wink encouraged?
Um,
As somebody who doesn't like using
yeah.
it, did you did did you use it, and did you feel that I should use it to see how this assignment would turn out?
Um, I didn't. I would say my gut reaction is something whenever professors do that, when I feel like they're encouraging AI use, and I'm speaking from mostly experiences in the humanities and the social sciences, it feels like the professors don't want to have to do this, but feel like it's an inevitability. And that always kind of makes me sad. And I'm also like, they're trying to make this whole AI thing work. And they're trying really hard to come up with creative ways to do it, or ways to implement it, or ways to accommodate for it, like an olive branch to the student body. And I
Where do you think that pressure is coming from? The students or maybe the administration?
I think both. I don't have my finger on the pulse of administration faculty discussions, but I assume there is some there. I think I'll say one experience I'd have, not to argue from anecdote, but I had a class period that was just we had to go in there and work in class. We weren't getting a lecture, we weren't having a group discussion. It was while you're in class today, you have this time to work. And our professor explicitly said, she was just like, I think students use AI because they feel this like time pressure or like they have so much to do that they take it as kind of an easy way out because they're struggling. So I want to really set aside this block of time for you guys to do this. And I said, that's so sweet. And I looked at the row of students ahead of me and I saw ChatGPT open on 3 computers. And I was like, we have an hour to do this. And it's so doable in an hour. And so that, I was like, wow, that's kind of disheartening. Um, and they never seem really enthusiastic about their like, I guess I'm gonna roll it back. A lot of the AI policy I see professors give out are more of a delineation of what you can and cannot use AI for.
Mhm.
And a big thing is always you have to cite AI. And a lot of times the what you can and cannot do with AI is intended to, or at least this is my reading, accept this kind of aspect of brainstorming, of research, of automation, while still preserving the idea of work and effort and it being the student's original thought process. I Maybe I'm a pessimist. Maybe I'm not an idealist enough. Whenever I see those policies, all I can think of is like, do you genuinely think students are following these? Because I never do.
You don't.
I don't because students use AI in all their classes when they're told not to. When you
Mm.
extend this olive branch, when you say you can use it for research, you can use it for outlining, you can use it for X, Y, and Z, but this is the stuff I really want you to do yourself. I don't think students are receptive to that
So why? Why do they go against what the policy says?
because one, I think there is still kind of this mysticism around AI and kind of the narrative that has been built and has not been completely dismantled of it being a student versus professor thing, and of something that is kind of covert and secretive, at least in that relationship, even if it's very open student to student, where students don't want the professors to know they're using AI and that it's doing something against the rules. Even when it is within the bounds of the rules, it
Mhm.
feels like there has to be some sort of subterfuge. I also think that when you have that delineation of what people are allowed to use AI and not use AI for, um, it kind of it both presumes that the students are going to exhibit restraint and follow these rules, even though like detection of AI work is I don't know if detection of AI work is difficult, but I remember when we were at the Center for the Advancement of Teaching talk, a lot of teachers and professors expressed anxiety over like false accusations or not knowing for sure or damaging the student teacher relationship. I think,
That's a hard thing. That's a
yeah,
Yeah.
very hard thing for a professor to
yeah,
accuse a student.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think students know that,
Mm.
right? I don't think we're blind to it. I don't think a lot of people get super freaked out at the idea of being caught. But I guess to hit the nail on the head with the hammer and address the original question of why don't they follow these guidelines, it's because I don't think people, when they use AI for assignments, are specifically thinking, how can AI help me in a unique and novel way? I think they're thinking, how can AI make this faster and easier?
Hmm.
And
Do you
so,
think do you think
oh,
some of it may come down to like maybe the students are they know how they're using it, obviously, so they're not intended to use it in like a malicious way, like not to get too depressing and bring it back
yeah,
to how old Ryan and I are, like we were talking about before the podcast. But I
Is this the
remember,
part we're gonna edit,
yeah,
Michael?
yeah, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
I remember when I was in middle school, high school, I don't remember, when the internet started becoming like computers started becoming a people have these, like
yeah,
not just like, oh, I know someone who has a computer, but like odds are decent you have it. They didn't want us using computers for assignments. They didn't want us using Wikipedia for assignments. And I'll be honest, like I used it, but I was using it to find sources. Do you know?
yeah.
So do you think this is much different or than that? Or could it possibly be that students are just like, I'm using it to find resources. I'm not using it to give me the answer.
I think that is a good question. And I think it is both. I think people do aim to use it for research often. And I think sometimes people are using it just like people use ChatGPT like they would use Google or like they
Mhm.
would use a calculator just to get an answer out of it.
Mhm.
I think there's also a
I wish
conflation.
this was a video thing. You could see me just shaking my head. How, oh, that's just, to me, that's just the worst use.
Everybody uses it.
Oh gosh.
It and I'm just like, oh my God, what are you doing? But I think there's also kind of and I don't think this is AI's fault. I think this is a wider problem where there's a really big conflation between doing research, finding sources, and finding the answer, where they're kind of seen as one and the same thing. Like, by doing this research, I am going to get capital T, the answer that I can write in my paper. I'm going to get capital T, the answer that I can use for this assignment. Um, and do I think AI has caused that understanding? No. Do I think it's maybe contributed to it?
Mhm.
I think yes, in the way at least just kind of answers or research done through AI is formatted, where you don't have to go through the searching process that makes you, I think, less inclined towards unexamined trust towards anything while you're
So
searching. You go.
I'm curious, why draw the line at AI and then not just go back to like 1992? And if you're researching something, go to a library and like, do you know what I mean? Like, what is it about AI in particular that like this seems different compared to
Yeah.
like how the internet was different from when I used to have to go research at a library?
Well, I think sometimes I do idolize like really old education where I had to learn, where like you had to
Mhm.
do chemistry and mathematics, and you also had to like the quintessential idea of a liberal arts, like Renaissance education. Sometimes I do
Mhm.
have hard eyes at that, and then I say, no, I'm a modernist.
Mhm.
But I think the difference, I I think there's a gradualist argument to be made where you're just like AI has made it just enough of a lack of effort that it becomes problematic. But I think a better argument is that, and I think this is where it ultimately goes back to me, is that these other shortcuts, these other ways of going about things, are inherently somewhat social or community oriented, in that you are, when interfacing with like public academia or like a forum or any of these or Wikipedia or any of these cheating websites. I did air quotes.
Thank you for describing.
um, People had these questions, people wrote these answers. You are kind of engaging with a community, even if it is through a screen. And I think the more engaged you get into that, the more you become cognizant that this is a community you are interacting with. And I think using ChatGPT as like an interlocutor between you and that community, where it's going to do all of that engaging, or it's going to have all of that in its database to read out of and then spit you out its response, it kind of damages that connection.
I think that's a good point. I don't know if I ever really thought about that before, like whether it's a coding issue that I'm looking up or my motorcycle is doing something weird. There is kind of this piece, or I don't know the right way to describe it. When you do stumble across something, even if it's a forum and it's like, this person is having the exact issue I have, something about that makes me feel less crazy and better. So that's a good point. I guess I never even thought about.
I want to jump in, Michael, and actually answer your other question too, which you asked what the difference was, and we might have to describe to our listeners what an actual library is. But when we had to go back and do the research in the library, we were going directly to the primary sources. So
Yeah.
we had to look up 12 different primary sources by ourselves. Now that you can talk about the efficiency of that, where
Yeah.
now if you use some of these AI tools and you're getting the summary that some other intelligence has created for you of the 12 different primary sources, and that intelligence has picked and choose what what the important pieces are. So that's where I see the big
Yeah.
difference between if you're just using it as simple research,
Yeah.
that the person querying these tools are not really going exactly to the primary sources.
Yeah.
This is also something I think about is like, are you using AI to find sources or read the sources for you?
Yeah.
Because
That's
then
a good point.
you're getting the average or standard interpretation of the text,
Mhm.
which honestly might not even be a good interpretation, or you could be missing details or your own interpretation of it, or you could be losing this more countercultural interpretation of it. As just, I think there's a lot of value in, even if you use AI to find your sources, reading them yourself.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
let me ask you, we've been talking a lot about AI and generative
Yeah.
AI. We've been making this blanket term. Are you mostly talking about tools such as the ChatGPT chatbot, or are there other tools that you use or you see students use? And I'm going to throw out Notebook LM. Like, do you, uh, is your view of AI, and basically you talk about mostly ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot,
Yeah.
Claude, or is it beyond that? Are there some of these other tools?
I have the most angst
Mhm.
towards the chatbot aspect because it feels the most dystopian to me in that, like, we've talked mostly about academic use and, like,
Mhm.
is there an honorable or is there a
Yeah.
beneficial academic use? But a lot of what you see is this personal use or this relationship building use in these chatbots that really really irks me.
Mhm.
And so I guess I have like a special zone in my heart for the LLM chatbot, which is more negative. But I think I do include Notebook. I
Do
include
you use Notebook LM?
no.
Oh my God, this is my 12-second rant. Students, I swear, I don't know why they will not use Notebook LM.
Don't
Please,
listen to him.
please, if you're a student out there,
Oh,
use Notebook LM for your studying. It is a fantastic, wonderful tool to create study guides. There's so many things you can do with it. If you don't know how to use it, come see me. I'll show you how to use it. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
I put it.
students, pull out a notebook and a pen and figure
We will agree to disagree
That's
on this one.
it's okay.
that's funny.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I want to go back to a point that you just made, and we may be venturing into scary territory here, but you mentioned relationships.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience or other people had any experience with some of these sycophantic chatbots or just even whichever chatbot forming the bonds with chatbots versus human bonds?
Yeah. I mean,
Oof.
yeah. People, it gets really weird, I think. Um, you hear some people talk about it very much just as a tool, but I think there is a real level of personification that, and I'll say ChatGPT in particular, has experienced, where it has been like personified, and it's almost this idea that there's like a communal understanding of it and of its common uses among, I think, people my age, be among maybe students in particular, where this kind of idea of like what chat is, who it is, which I think is weird, and like what people use it for,
Mm.
that people talk about it like affectionately, which weirds me out. Um, And I think that AI psychosis, I mean, it's the subject of a lot of ongoing research. I
Yes, it
think
is.
that, frightens me. I also think it's I think it does. I remember I brought this up at the like students talking about AI conference
Mhm.
that I got recommended to this podcast after, which was like the first time in my life I was in a math class and people didn't immediately stay after class and try and like exchange numbers with each other or try and get to know the people they were sitting near because that used to be like the lifeline. Like if
Mhm.
I don't know how to do this, I can't figure it out myself. I've read the textbook, I'm online, I can't figure it out. You'd go and you'd text people, and that just didn't happen. And I was
Mm.
like, "Oh, wow. This is" there is, I think, kind of like a destruction of community when you have this confidence that I am going to be able to figure it out on my own,
Mhm.
M dash with ChatGPT or
You just had
with
ChatGPT
generative
write that.
AI use.
You threw an M dash in there. That is definitely ChatGPT.
Side note, I
Yeah.
laugh at the M dash thing nonstop because a place I worked at years ago, there was someone who would always like come back with feedback for things I produced and be like, put an M dash here. And I'm like, maybe she's behind this. Maybe.
Yes,
Maybe.
seriously. It's been trained on all her work, huh?
Yeah, so it looks like I'm getting the last laugh on that one.
Yeah, I always my thing about M dashes, this is so tangential. I grew up, I was told M dashes are not a part of formal writing. And so now, if I'm like helping someone with writing, whether in my position as a tutor or just as a friend, I'm like, take the M dashes out. They're like, what? Does it look like AI? Do you think my teacher's gonna think it's AI? And I'm like, no, because it's bad. Like, take it out because it shouldn't be
Yeah.
there. But stylistically, I can appreciate them. But I think when people get scared that they are going to get caught for using AI when they haven't used I don't think that's like a real fear. I
Mm.
don't think it's commonplace at all. I think it's a commonplace fear. I don't think it's a commonplace reality.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna let you off the academic hook here for a minute.
Yeah.
Hopefully, let let's ease off that. Um, let's talk about personal uses.
Yeah.
Do you or some of your friends have any worthwhile personal uses for uh let's stick with these the chatbot tools.
Yeah. Um, I don't really. I mean, as I kind of apply a lot of the same standards I use for academic to the rest of my
Mhm.
work and my hobbies. I do know that I try and avoid AI art like the plague. That's more because of a support for art and the
Mhm.
artist. Um, a lot of people I know, when they do use it for their personal life, it's always for this like idea of scheduling or planning,
Mhm.
Hmm.
which I haven't investigated enough into how they're actually using it to do so, to have a great take on that. Besides the fact that it does confuse me.
Mhm.
Because in my mind, like, you have all the information you need to make that schedule out for yourself. Off-sourcing it seems somewhat strange to me, but that's a common use I see for it. Um, I know that, like, my door decks on my wall right now are AI-generated images. Um, I know that I've seen, like, other RA boards on campus that are RA-generated images. Half the flyers you see around
Mm.
are AI. So I think whenever there is this desire for a product, AI is really frequently turned to. Um, I don't know if I have a great handle on this because I think I spoke that I do have friends that use AI academically. I think I have a lot fewer that use it
Hmm.
outside of that.
Interesting.
Because I think that
Hmm.
is almost more like taboo, if that
You
makes
think it's
sense.
more taboo in a personal life than academic life?
Yeah,
I just want to understand.
I think, yeah.
Interesting. So, s-
Hmm.
is that more that? Oh wow. Is that more that students are, in a way, if you think AI is bad, more fearful of their friends finding out they're using it than a professor finding out they're using it?
Well, maybe not even like fear of like persecution or like judgment, but
Okay.
more just like a lot of people use it for school because they feel like they have to, or they
Okay.
feel pressured into it, or they're like, I'm so overwhelmed, I have so much going on, etc., etc. I'm going to use ChatGPT.
Mhm.
And then there they have an excuse,
Hmm.
right? And I'm not going to say it's invalid. I think there are like a lot of pressures that drive people to prioritize efficiency. Even if I think it's not
Hmm.
worth it. Um, and in their personal life, they don't have that own self-justification.
Hmm.
And I think they're more likely to refrain in that way.
Do you think it's because with schoolwork, it's something you don't want to do, but you have to do? In
Mm.
personal life, these are things you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. I
It's
mean,
interesting.
maybe image generation is the exception. I
Yeah.
I know that Michael, you're concerned about its use in like music and sound production. We talked about that briefly. I as like a digital artist myself, I always get like my hackles raised when I'm in like an area and somebody's just like, "Ooh, like we need like a mascot for this." ChatGPT give me like this animal and this funny hat. And I'm just like, open Photoshop.
Yeah.
But like I'll do it. Or and so that I think image generation a lot of people use it just because they see it as like something they can't otherwise do.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who use AI academically because of the pressures and they feel like they're justified in doing that, but they don't use it in their personal life because they don't have that self-justification.
Man, I would not be a good student. I'm the opposite. I use it
Yeah.
more in my personal life because there's so
Really?
much I think I can do with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I use it a lot in my personal life, but there's certain things like my wife told me like recently that she had a friend who took a photo of herself and asked, I'm gonna guess ChatGPT, like, hey, what haircut should I get? And I no, I was just like,
Text
absolutely
your
not,
friend.
absolutely not.
Oh, come on,
Yeah.
Michael. You've definitely taken pictures of yourself and used different hairstyles.
No, why? I have my wife who tells me what haircut to get, when to get it,
Fair
that I'm
enough.
no
That
longer
is
Fair
allowed to
enough.
grow my hair out.
You have a what wife GPT to help
Yeah,
you
when do
with
I have to shave? Like,
that.
I think it's also because and maybe the difference is more marginal than I'm making it out to be. I think students we have this kind of idea that I think is real of like having each other's backs. And so like lambasting each other over AI use academically is though some people do it. I think a lot of students who I know and me myself do try and discourage other students from using AI. But I think there is right this kind of camaraderie where we're like we're not going to get in on each other's case that much about this, but if I'm like scrolling through my Instagram and I saw somebody's used like the Studio Ghibli filter on themselves and posted it to their
mm.
story, I'm going to swipe up and I'm going to say you're lame and send it. Because, right, it's like you're doing this for fun,
Mhm.
right? You can't be like, my hand was forced by the confines of my situation.
Yeah, I'm really torn on the art aspect because like I like say in terms of music, like I don't like seeing the advertisements where it's like saying
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it made you a songwriter." It's like, no. It's like I can make this cool sounding thing in a music generator, but I still stink at guitar. Um, but then I think about it also from an artist viewpoint of maybe there's a independent filmmaker who has a great idea and he just flat out can't afford to have someone do special effects or make a score for his movie. So like in one way it's kind of like it's enabling him to do his art. So I'm very conflicted on it personally.
Yeah, I remember this was an argument so unrelated to school, but Expedition 33 had won, which is a new indie video game last year. It won an award, I don't remember which, at the Game Awards, but people found out that they had used AI for doing some of their textures. Um, or at least they had used AI to make like their first draft of all the textures, and then like a majority, but not all of the textures were then redone by artists. And I remember I was thinking about that. I was just like, huh, like, how against that am I?
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
Because on one hand, I'm just like, well, I guess I would have liked an artist to do it because that would have been like, a job for them or it was going to be work. But then this
Mhm.
studio had budget constraints and most
Mhm.
of it was replaced in the final product. And you kind of go back and forth. And then I thought to myself, why weren't they just using like the default textures on Blender or a pack you can download anywhere and then replacing them with original ones? So that's always, I think there's a lot of things that there aren't easy answers for and where it's not super useful to take like a super moralist perspective and be like, this is bad because they used AI. There should
Mhm.
be a better explanation for it behind that.
Okay, so we've firmly moved away from academics, which
Yeah.
I want to end on this. You have 3 semesters left,
Yeah.
presumably
2.5. Yeah.
2.5, and good luck.
Thank you.
Um, what are your plans after graduation?
My plans after graduation are pretty loose. I think this might be a fun tie-in. The most anxiety AI gives me is that I think it's destroying entry-level jobs. And
And
that
great, because that's sort of where
stresses me out.
I was
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
here. In whatever future career
Yeah.
that you want to do you think you are going to need to be AI proficient?
Um, I think you have to be able to say you are, whether you are or not, to check a box in an application process.
Mhm,
I don't know if not learning how to use AI or not experimenting with it is going to have a real deep consequence. Maybe that's wishful thinking,
mm,
but I don't I also don't know exactly how difficult I think it is to pick up, given that a major motivation in a lot of these AI tools is to be incredibly simplistic to use. It's kind of one of their main marketing
mhm,
pushes,
Mhm.
right? And I think that makes it so like, oh, it's a like skill you have to be able to do when the product is marketing itself as something
mhm.
like, we're gonna make this as easy as possible for you. They kind of sit at odds with each other. Um, but I'm applying for jobs right now for over the summer, and a lot of them say, like, "You should be proficient in using these tools," and I just say, "I am."
Fair enough. I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah,
Um, thank you.
no problem.
Appreciated the conversation. Thank you for your brutal honesty. It's refreshing to hear from a student perspective, and that not all students are cheating. Again, I'm using my air quotes,
Yeah.
cheating their way through college. You are here for the right reasons. You want to learn. Your motivation is to do the deep learning. So thank you for explaining all that to us and putting it so succinctly and eloquently.
Yeah. And can I have one closing comment?
Please do.
I think a lot of students, even the ones that use AI, are here to learn, but I think they lack a confidence in their own ability to do it and to do the work. And I think that's a major problem that needs to be addressed, to emphasize to people that you can do this yourself and that you have the skills and the resources to do it, and you don't need to rely on AI like that.
Okay, so students listening to this, come to Talon. She's going to start a new program to give all the students the confidence to succeed at Wake Forest, right?
Obviously, yeah. I'm very philanthropic and I have a lot of free time.
There you go. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks again to our guest, and thanks for listening to the Deeks.ai podcast. Please continue to follow the AI discussion by subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you have any comments, questions, or would like to join the discussion, please email us at deeks.ai@wfu.edu.